Hi folks, it's Keith Beardsley here with the Beardsley Real Estate Team and Century 21. And I thought today I would start a new series. Actually, it's more of an update from an old series that I did several years ago, and look at what is an offer. What is it? What does it look like? What are the parts? What's involved when you have to sit down with an agent and you write an offer? So I thought this would be a good way to do it, just do a series of small videos. It's going to be perfect for first-time buyers who've never seen an offer. And even if you've bought one or two houses in time and you're now looking to maybe buy another one, downsize, buy a smaller one. If you haven't looked at an offer in 10, 15, 20 years, it's probably a good time to look at this video. So this is going to be pretty straightforward, pretty simple to, at least we want to try and make it simple, and try and explain to a first-time buyer what are the different sections of an offer? What do those sections mean to you, the buyer? What obligations are you going to have when you fill out that offer? So let's get started and let's get right into what is an offer. Well, when you purchase a home, now condo offers will look slightly different, not that much, but there's a little bit of a difference in a condo offer. So this is more for the residential or home property. Now, the form that we use here is the Ontario Real Estate Form. It's used by quite a few different boards. Some boards may have almost the same form, but they tweak it to put, certain things into it, that type of thing. But no matter where you are in Ontario, it's going to look something like this. Now, the exception to all of this, of course, is a builder. Lots of builders have their own forms. Lots of builders have lots of very small print in those forms. And they can be many more pages than what you would get in a normal residential offer that an agent might do for you on a private property. So let's look at that, and let's look at what we have. So an offer, when you put it in, it's binding. All right, so don't think you can just go throw offers around all over the place. There are legal obligations that go with that offer. So you have to keep that in mind. You just can't throw one in and disappear. For one thing, if that offer is accepted, you now have issues. So you have to treat it very, very seriously. It's not something to do lightly, and it's something to do with a lot of thought and a lot of care. So if you're not sure, or your agent isn't telling you what you want, isn't giving you the answers you want, use your lawyer. There's nothing wrong in getting a lawyer involved. And in some cases, with new buyers, it's not a bad idea at all. And you can put clauses into that office to say that your lawyer has to look at it and approve it and so on. So there are all sorts of things that you can do. And we're going to try and keep this very general at this point. So here's an offer. This is what it looks like. So this essentially is an offer. This is your page one. And we're just going to go through the parts here, the obligations that come under it, that we can do in a separate video. This is just a quick intro. So if you look at it, it's pretty easy. Top of the page to the date, which is actually very important that you get the date right. Full legal name of all buyers. So if there's two of you, one's going to go here. We have the little word "and," which can pop up there. And there's the name of the second buyer. Nothing unusual. Full name, though, not nicknames. This will be where the sellers are. If there's one seller, that's fine. If there's two, exact same thing. No difference. So where you see real property, that's the address. That's all that is. That's the address of the property, postal code, province, street number, that type of thing. Fronting on the side of, this simply means what side of the street, facing what direction does that house sit on. So that sometimes gets confusing because people say I'm on the south side of the street, but you're fronting towards the north. And where is that? Well, is it a city, district, town of, township, whatever. This is where you name it. So it could be, you know, municipality of North Grenville. It could be city of Ottawa. All sorts of things you can put in there. Now the frontage, get rid of that little word there. The frontage, how wide is the property? Now we still do things in feet for the most part in Ontario. So you would say, whatever it was, 90.0 feet wide. And then you would see over here the depth of the property. How deep is that property? Again, the measurements. Every property in Ontario has a legal description. So that's what you're going to part down in this part down here. Be the legal description. It could be lot, who knows, let's make one up. Lot 2, subsection 3 of concession 1-2, North Grenville. It's usually a great big long legal description. Very important because that's what the lawyers are going to be when they transfer title. That's nothing for you to worry about. That's what your agent has to get correct. Down here, you see 2. Purchase price, which is this big one long line, and you see dollars. This is what you are willing to pay for that property. And that's obviously in many cases going to be negotiated. Someone might want $500,000 for that house. You might be willing to offer them $450,000. That's where you would put in how much money you want to offer. Here, the next line, deposit. This is an important one, and it's changed quite a bit over the years. Buyer submits, and you can see herewith upon acceptance, otherwise described. Most offers will have upon acceptance. So essentially, if your offer is accepted, you've got basically 24 hours to get the money to them. And now a deposit is just that. All right, it's not the full price or anything like that. It's a deposit to show that you're acting in good faith. Now, when you do this, and I say it's changed, for the longest time in Ottawa and the Ottawa region, $1,000 was all people used. All right, so you would write down here, submits upon acceptance, $1,000, writes it out $1,000. That's pretty well gone away now since COVID and the pandemic and all that crazy buying. So now you're probably looking, depending on your agent and your company and the company and agent that represents the seller, you're probably looking somewhere between 1% and 3%. So if it's a $500,000 house, expect to be putting down, at least $5,000 and maybe more, depending on how the negotiations go. Everything is negotiated. By check payable to, and in this case, it's almost always paid to the real estate company that has that listing. Now, when it's paid, it just doesn't go into a bank account. It goes into a special trust account. And that money is basically going to sit there until that house sells, goes firm, and closes. And they're, to get that money back if things fall through, you can. But we'll get into that another time. You go down a little bit lower. Schedule A. So what's Schedule A? Schedule A is really where you put all of your conditions. All of the stuff that's important for you, that's where you put them. And it can be several pages long. So it's not just one page. Sometimes Schedule A can be, 3-4 pages long, depending on how many clauses you have. So that's the type of things you have to look at. Now this is a very, very important line. This is the irrevocable. So what does that mean? Well, you submit an offer to a seller, and your agent's going to fill out, this offer shall be irrevocable by the buyer until what day and time. So let's say you're putting an offer in today, and you want to give them a bit of time to think about it. So you could put down here, 8 p.m. on whatever date, 2 days from now, or 1 day from now. I've seen offers come in with only a couple of hours time. So that's really up to you and your agent to discuss. The idea is, give the seller a bit of time, because sometimes they get an offer and they go, oh no, don't like this one at all. And then they think about it. So never try and, jam it down their throat. That doesn't work because you just get them all annoyed. So you have irrevocable by the buyer until the time, the day, the month, and the year. If not accepted, this offer shall be null and void, and the deposit shall be returned to the buyer in full without interest. So if for some reason it doesn't go through, and at this point you haven't exchanged money in your deposit, you simply put it up in there. But if for some reason that offer falls through, and this is what they're looking at, buyer just, excuse me, not the buyer, the seller just says, no, don't like this one, rejects it. They can. They can simply write rejected on it. Now, some agents will just do that. They'll have the seller mark rejected on it, sign it, and send it back. I like to have my sellers fill out a special form which says, yes, the offer was presented to me at such and such a time, and I have decided for whatever reason, not to accept it, or maybe it's to accept another offer. But I think you need that little extra step, that little bit of assurance that everything went the way it was supposed to. And the other very important one is completion date. All that means is, what day do you want to move in? What day do you want the keys for that house? So you have to know that before you put an offer in. You can't just throw it in and say, oh, you have to buy the house, we'll figure out when it's going, when we're going to move in. No, you have to know when you fill out that offer before you submit it. You have to pick a date, because that's the date that everything in that offer is going to be moving towards. Then down below, you can see initial of the buyer. So one buyer initials, two buyers initials, whatever. Sellers would do the same thing over here. Then we get into some of the other stuff. And if you look at this one, this is where we write for agents really as to how are we going to get documents to you or to me or whatever. So it's all email addresses for the most part now. Chattels included, number 4. This is a very important one. What does the MLS listing say is included? Does it say fridge, stove, dishwasher, central air, hot water tank? Could be any number of things. And this is where your agent fills all of that out. Now, you're going to see in some offers where, I don't know, maybe you've got the seller who's selling has a big property and there's a lawn tractor, but the lawn tractor doesn't show there. Nothing stops you from putting, lawn tractor in there. And the seller will decide if you want to let you have it or not for what you want to pay for the house. So those are things that you need when you go through the house, at least the first time. Most people should really take a second look. But if you go through the house for the first time, make a note of what's there. Are there things that you might want that aren't listed there? So these are things that, as part of your prep for getting ready to put an offer in, you should be doing. Now, fixtures that are excluded. This is another item. Sometimes in a house, there are items that maybe the seller wants to take with them that are attached, a fixture, something attached to a wall. Maybe there's a big mirror in the bedroom that, they absolutely want to take with them. That's where they put it. There might be a fan over, one of the beds in one of the bedrooms. They might want to take that with them. So that's where they will list everything that's important to them that is attached and they want to take. Do you have to accept all of that? No. You can say, no, I want that fan. That becomes part of the negotiations again. But you need to look carefully at that MLS listing agreement. What is the seller saying? We're taking this item with us, because that will and can become part, in many, many cases, part of the negotiating process. And down here, rental items, another key thing. If you're in the country, are those propane tanks rented or owned? Makes a difference when you move in. I can use another one as an example, which is very common. Hot water tank. Is it rented or owned? If it's rented, you're going to probably take over that contract and you'll have a monthly expense that you may not have thought about. It's not going to be huge, but you need to have a list there of everything that is rented and owned. All right, so this is the key. You get down here and you have HST. Remember, wonderful, the government always wants your money. So on this particular property that you're buying, is the HST included in the price, or is it extra added on to the price? So in almost all cases, certainly very, very common, it's going to be included. So you're not going to pay $500,000 for this house plus HST, right? Because it's a resale home. New homes are different. Now, in many cases, the builder of a new home will include the HST in the price they're asking. But if you're buying from a builder, better read that contract and make sure that it's not an addition. And again, there you go. Buyer's initials, seller's initials. Title search. Well, this is the number of days you're going to give your lawyer to go through all the paperwork, check on the house, make sure that there's no liens, that they're not involved in lawsuits and all sorts of stuff. So they need to search title, make sure that the people who are living there actually own the house. That's your lawyer's job. And it's usually about 10 days roughly before you're actually going to close the house and get your keys. Present use, in other words, if it's a residential property, we'll probably say residential. And as we go through, like these are all different clauses. It takes way too long to explain here, but you can see inspection clauses. It says right here for the buyer, you acknowledge having the opportunity to have a home inspector basically go through. In the country, we're also talking a well and water inspector if you want. You're also talking septic inspector. So you're allowed to do all these inspections, and this clause is put in to make sure that you are aware and that your agent reminds you that you can do all of this. And then, different things here, but for the most part, these are things that will be explained by your agent. Most of it is very normal. Electronic signatures, just what we said, you can do all of this on a computer now. You don't have to, meet with your agent to sign every single page and so on. I like to with first-time buyers, at least the first couple of times, but everyone does things their own way. Agreement in writing in Ontario, it's got to be in writing, right? It's no longer a shake of a hand. Time and date, so I write down 8 p.m. and I live in the Ottawa. It's 8 p.m. Ottawa, not 8 p.m. Vancouver or 8 p.m. Winnipeg. It's 8 p.m. Ottawa. And then you're into where do you sign? Well, there you go. Now, witness could be anyone. Buyer, date. Buyer and date. And that's what you send in. And then we'll get back to what the seller does later on. But you can see where when the seller gets the offer, they're basically acknowledging they received it when they sign here and here. If for some reason there's only one person on the offer, and it could be, for instance, common law situation or whatever, well, one person can sign and you can get the consent of the other, especially if it's a matrimonial property. And this part, confirmation of acceptance, is only signed when either you or the seller say, yeah, we'll take this offer. That's when that gets filled out. Until then, nothing gets touched there. And the rest is more for us because this is who is the selling company, who is the listing company, who is the selling company. So everyone knows. The acknowledgement part here, when you actually have a copy of it and everything is done, then you can sign that and acknowledge that you've actually received a good copy of it. And this down here, don't worry about it. This is really for the real estate agents. So there we go. And they'll bring up Schedule A, which is the next part. And the only thing I'll say for Schedule A, it's going to be very long, probably one of the longest parts of the offer that you're going to be interested in. Buyer's name, seller's name, purchase of, address of the property, the date, and so on. This is where all the different conditions go. And I will do a separate video just on that. But this is where you would say, subject to me getting a new mortgage, and there's all sorts of ways, legal ways of writing this. I want a home inspection. I want septic inspection. This is the section where all of that goes. And then again, more initials. And that's it. So that's a sort of very, very basic introduction for you